It's news from heaven. Today we're going to be talking about how angel thoughts are like organ systems. Why are you looking at me like that? How you been this week? Are the dark clouds of life getting you down? Is the mental weather convincing you that the picture, the outlook is bleak and that there are forces aligned against you of whatever kind that are insurmountable, or that there's some kind of existence itself is flawed in some kind of way that makes life unmanageable, or you just having bad days? Can we, through looking at the larger picture of what may just be really out there shining down, can we give ourselves a break from that? Can we arm ourselves with some tools that will help us dispel things that are just appearances rather than how things actually are? So with all that said, let's take a look at this topic of, the organ systems and the angels and that kind of stuff. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments, man. We want to hear how this is working for you and what this does for the human race. And we're in Spiritual Experiences, Swedenborg's journal, so there's no PDF to download, but you can follow along diligently here. And we're going to be in number 2211. Oh, you can go get the book. I mean, there are books of this sort of stuff, so... You got it? You ready? Let's dive in. And I was reading Swedenborg's Journal of Spiritual Experiences. Don't we all do that when we have a little bit of free time? And I came across this one and I thought, this is weird, but this has got to happen. This has got to happen. Okay? So, we begin. In the title, there's always titles on these Spiritual Experiences numbers. How the portrayals and thoughts of angels compare with ours. And right away, isn't that interesting? If you think about it, this angel is something we aspire to, right? This is in pop culture, wherever, to be angelic, in the arms of the angel, fly away from here. Angels are something that represents an embodiment or a force for good, and Swedenborg is asserting this is a state of mind you can start to get into. What's the difference? If an angel comes down and visits you, this happens, what's it thinking on the way down? And how is an angel's internal monologue? What's its ratio to our internal monologue, and so on and so on? And how does Swedenborg know this stuff? Well, I spoke to angels, which is not done by speech, about the quality of angels' thoughts in comparison with those of people on earth. So he's asking, what's the difference? Plus, this is not done by speech, some kind of telepathic sharing of what the meaning behind the stuff that we put into words. This is common feature of near-death experiences. Often people who have had some kind of profound spiritual experience gravitate towards Swedenborg for one reason, because of this similarity in the way that you converse when you're in the spirit, that you don't need to activate vocal cords, but yet you can still speak, so it's not just like some kind of weird dream. The thoughts of angels... Here we go. We're getting our description. What are angels' thoughts like? And you think, this is going to be poetry. Swedenborg actually was a poet. He did before he had these theological books. He released a little book of poems. And you think, here he is talking about the thoughts of angels. What could be more lofty? What could be more beautiful? You just look up at the clouds when it's hitting you, how amazing these things are. And I'm sure that's what the thoughts of angels are like. Or is it like the stars? Is it something beyond? The thoughts of angels, this has got to be beautiful. And here we have the great poet, Emanuel Swedenborg, about to tell us what the thoughts. So get ready to be emotionally wowed. This is going to be sort of the epitome of the beauty that we chase in life. The thoughts of angels are like the tiny internal organs of some little worm. That's what they're like the tiny internal organs of some little worm. How are we going to dig ourselves out of that? I got to see an angel's thought. What was it like? Like the stomach of a grub. Tiny. What's he talking about? What is he talking about? He lost it, right? Let's see. Can we pull this back together? Like the tiny internal organs of some little worm, scarcely visible to the human eye, except as a faint point, or more specifically, as single and simple, as if it were nothing more than a little body. We have our setup. You can see a little insect, and it's like, oh, there's just a little something, but in there, there's little, like there are in us, little organ systems. And somehow, this is what angelic thoughts are like. Do you want to read on? Okay. Yet the thoughts of angels seen inwardly are like man's internal organs, which are almost like those in a larger animal with its organs, stomach, brain marrow, etc. An animate body is composed of these, thus of many, many members. The thoughts of angels are like the interiors of that body. So it is not easy to describe or to fathom for a person on earth what the thoughts of angels are like, since they are like the little internal organs that make up a body, which in turn is comparable to the mental image of the person on earth. So what is he talking about? This is what I think. So let's say you have a bee, like a bee flies around your head, or maybe this is a yellow jacket, something like that, and you think, look at that bee is right there, okay? And you see it, and you just think, okay, there's a little something, it's buzzing around. And you get little like roly-polies, which kind of look even simpler, and then you have these little teeny mites walking around on the rocks that just seem like they're just a little speck. There's very little complexity to them. Okay, it's just a bee, there's a body and a head and some wings. And Swedenborg is saying that when you look inside this bee, you get this whole complex world. That it is within this little thing. It just seems like, okay, here's its bum, and it's just sitting there. There's all this stuff going on. Like we know, okay, a bee has a pointy thing that hurts, a stinger. But did you know there's all these minuscule tubes in this little computer here synthesizing poison that then gets it into this loading dock that's ready. And then up here you've got a stomach with all of its lining and all of the cells, and there's the heart that's making this whole thing possible. There are so many little parts in here. And he's saying that angels' thoughts are like the stuff going on inside. What we're going to be seeing here is if you compare, have I lost you? Oh well, I tried my best. If you compare our thoughts to like the simple, there's a bug. Like we understand things on, okay, the bug can move, the bug can land, the bug can sting. Whereas angelic thoughts are like the much more complex processes that the heart is circulating, but at the same time regulating pressure and making sure the body gets what it needs. That the cells in here are doing the things they need to do to purify at a molecular level. Complexity increases because here, if we had to describe everything that this body does at this stage, it can move its legs like this. There's a lot. That would fill a pamphlet, but if you had to describe everything going on at this level, we're suddenly looking at a multi-volume work, I would think, depending on how big your font size is and your margins. You remember from high school. So here you have that angelic thoughts not only are more complex, but the kinds of functions they have. Jumping, flying, landing, very different sort of functions than filtering, processing, creating, chemical substances. He's saying we can look at that as a correspondence, or a difference, a ratio between how angels think and how we think, and take that even a little farther. That this is the way the two interact. That all this stuff needs to be functioning in order to allow these other functions to happen. Like if you didn't have the heart pumping, however, I don't even know if a bee's heart really pumps. I don't know how their circulatory system works. If you didn't have all these things doing what they need to do, you couldn't do these larger macro actions. That's the ratio, the relationship as well between the things angels think about and how they think and the things that we think about. For it is well known that the insides of the animate body are entirely different from the outside. From the outside, no one could deduce that the interiors are as they are unless they had been revealed to the person by ocular vision. Then it is obvious that they're entirely dissimilar, consisting as they do of brain, spinal marrow, lungs, heart, or little hearts, stomach, liver, vessels devoted to generation, among other things found in a large animate body. Moreover, they consist of countless tissues, vessels, tunics, ligaments, and also so as to function unanimously. Thus, they make up a body that is nothing but the complex of all those parts, appearing in a simple form to the eye, which is unaware that there are so many components, indeed, such as if one were lacking, a crippling effect would rebound into the composite whole as a serious defect. And Swedenborg, he was an anatomist before he started doing all this spiritual stuff. What part of what he did was make discoveries on how the human body and similar bodies works. So to him, this was right in line with the mysteries of the physical world. And you think about what he's saying there. The human body We walk around in one of these things. But even me getting ready for this show and looking here at like, oh, wait a second. Oh, I'm in yellow. Look at that. Wait a second. This is how our stomach is. I was thinking, wow, you have this whole loop here. Like, I've had one of these things for 34 years. But I don't have any, I had to look at a picture to, oh, that's what's going on inside me, that you would never know just from looking at the person, that there's so much complexity, or how the things line up, or what they're doing, right? That this is the difference. Angels are thinking on the inward level, and we're thinking on the outward level. There always has to be those levels, and you can't just think your way from one into the other. You can't just look at a person and think, okay, there's probably this, you probably have a liver in there somewhere. You just would never get it. You can stare, you can navel gaze as much as you want, unless there had been people figuring this out and diagramming it, putting it on the internet so you can see. We wouldn't know. We would have a sort of a vague sense, but we wouldn't know, let alone how this stuff functions on a cellular level. Even that we had cells, you would never know that. You would never know that your body was made out of cells. This is how the mental images of angels' thoughts compare with those of human thoughts. For they are component parts. So the thoughts of angels, mental images of angels, are component parts of the thoughts we have, the nature of which cannot possibly be grasped unless the Lord reveals it to the person. So Swedenborg is comparing our need for microscopic or anatomical diagrams or being able to see the structure of how it is inside, to the spiritual sight you need to understand the difference with angels' thoughts. Just as no one can know which and of what kind of components are in that little body that we talked about in the beginning, which taken together constitute the whole little animal, so human mental imagery is a complex of components we have no knowledge of at all because they're dissimilar. Even human mental imagery, even what you know what your thought, you know how a thought occurs to you, like, I want to go do this. I believe this about this. That person seems like this. We know the bee. We know that this thing just landed. Oh, this just buzzed by, and I got a sense of, it makes a buzzy sound and it moves. We don't know what's going on within that thought. We don't know what's propelling that thought to fly through our mind. We don't know what animates it. We don't know the dangers it has, and we don't know the good things it can do. We know almost nothing about it. Angels know what's going on inside our thoughts and why they are like they are, what sustains them, what they're building toward. That this comparison is correct is also evident from the fact that in each of a person's ideas, even to the very least, the whole person is present in the state in which he or she is at the time, thus together, so to speak, with all members, internal organs, or inward parts. So this is something that Swedenborg asserts before, that in one of our ideas, and I don't know if you ever came across this before getting around to Swedenborg, but in one of your ideas, one little subsection of your thought, the whole you is present there. And how would that work? What does that even mean? What he's asserting is that, let's say this bee is one of our thoughts. Within it, the stuff that circulates its life, the stuff that processes what it needs to have as food, all the stuff that keeps this thought alive, that we're not even aware of being there, this is all a reflection of us. How it digests is a reflection of what we love and what we care about. What it circulates is a reflection of what animates us, what means something to us. Who knows what we believe is part of its brain or nervous functioning. This stuff in here is really our sort of genetic footprint. That this is, an angel can look at this, what's inside the thoughts and feelings, and know what you're like from the core. That each one of our little thoughts and feelings is a little imprint of us. This is shown clearly by the fact that the mere speaking of a soul or spirit lets angels recognize, when the Lord sees fit, the true character of the person, what his or her life in the body was like, and what it is now like, taking into account their present state of mind. The character varies as that state changes, but no differently than as a face is varied into several forms, as was told before, while the basic face still remains. That's another story where he's talking about how in heaven your face is an image of who you are, so people who care about similar things look similar, just like you have genetic similarities on earth. This idea, though, that you can say one word and then angels can know everything about you, there's a clear analog to this on Earth, and I'm going to start to draw it, and let's see. We're playing charades here. How long until you can guess what this is? Oh my gosh, this is going to take a long time. Okay. Did anyone get it? Write it in the comments. Okay. It's a fingerprint. It's hard to draw a fingerprint. It's got a swirl on it. This is that just where your finger touches, then you can know who the person is. But even more so, if we're talking sort of crime scene stuff. Oh shoot, that's not going to do it. What about DNA evidence? Hey, there's a double helix for you. That you can anything you touch can leave cells behind, and somebody can scoop up those cells, find the DNA in there, and know exactly who you are from that, because each of your little cells carries the entirety of your genetic code in it. So all your thoughts and feelings carry the whole spiritual code of who you are. But the ideas or thoughts of angels, right, that's what we're here to talk about. That is, those of the inward heaven, in comparison to those of a person on earth, do not extend farther than the interiors of the little animal mentioned, namely, to its integral parts, such as the numerous internal organs taken. You can tell he's an anatomist. He really likes to be thorough about talking about how things are inside, like the many little glands or more general compositions. So what are within these whole parts or internal organs, such as in the brain and its spinal marrow, in the stomach, the heart, and the liver, they do not know. Yet, here again, a new and broad field presents itself of mysteries out of which those members are composed. Taking only the liver as an example, there are countless things which compose it, such as glandular aggregations consisting of smaller glands as well as little tubes, ducts. Indeed, there are many other things in them to which the idea of the very inward and innermost angel's thoughts are comparable. So as you go deeper into the angels, there you can have a certain level of angelic thought that's, it's just like this little sac is here. That's part of its esophagus, right? But as you go deeper, you become more and more angelic. What about the little cells that are composing that? What about the substructures, the organelles within that organ? Even the angels of a certain level don't know that. That's the angels of the next level up. And we sing this cool progression here in the text, which is, this all shows how crude still the mental images of angels are in comparison to the divine ones of the Lord. Hey, you came here to hear about angels' thoughts, and you're getting a bonus. This is how God thinks. This is how the divine thinks. Holy ground, right? Take those shoes off. Comparisons of the divine ones of the Lord, which stream in and impart life, the ability to think, which can be likened to the tissues and arteries, incalculably many in number. So here we have the cellular level. If you think the way that we think, here's the progression. Here's the progression. How is this not cool? How is this not cool? Here's the progression of how people on the outermost level think, back to angels who are on the next level, into the higher angels which are on the next level, back into God. That progression is mapped into everything organic that we see. It's mapped into your body. It's mapped into your pet goldfish. It's everywhere. And it is that we think on the level of like the whole organism. You can tell, okay, here Curtis is a person and he is talking too much about something that nobody cares about. Okay, that's one level. Angels understand. The first level of angels understand, oh, well, as Curtis is jabbering on, there's vocal cords that are being vibrated. He's having to take in and out air. He's having to circulate blood. His brain supposedly is working a little bit, right? That's angels understand. But the higher angels understand what is within the as the little muscles that are in the tongue, how those all have to work in sequence and how they have to move together to produce said ambiguously useful sound that I'm making right now. But you have God behind all that. This is like the force that's in the tissues and on the cellular level. This is stuff that angels don't even get. That this infusion of life on that has to happen trillions and trillions of times in all these places. That's like, and as incomprehensible as that is from just the perspective of looking at the whole organism, the only reason we know it exists is all this study that came in. That's something like what the divine is bringing into us. Okay? That's cool. What stream in from the Lord are the vital essences, for it is these that flow through the tissues and tiny vessels. And this, hey, if you already fell asleep, wake up. This is cool. The organic parts belong to angels and spirits, while the vital element going through the tissues or into the tissues or that flow in and through the tiny vessels belong to the Lord. For angels and spirits are only organic instruments, devoid of life. The life is of the Lord alone. You can have cellular tissue in a petri dish. It doesn't necessarily live, even though it's got all the structure there. God is the life animating those tissues. So there you have this progression, this grand progression of life that repeats itself in everything that's alive, because everything that's alive gets its source from that progression. And so that's cool. And that is the news from heaven. Okay? So here we are. Does that lighten your load? Does anything in there inspire you? And I don't know exactly what would be inspiring about that. I could think of some things. I could think about the idea that the truth is so cool. I could think of the idea that I am a map of this greatest progression that exists. I could think of the immediacy of the divine is like the life in my tissues, that the God is through everything, and not just through me, but through life and through the trajectory and through the things that I'm going to be going through, so that all the stuff in my life that seems chaotic and random is actually being cared for as carefully as the teeny little processes that are going on all the time, all throughout you that you don't even realize. So God is paying attention to your life and where you're going to end up, and can totally take on all the things that scare you. There's a lot of things. Let me know in the comments what worked for you. Like and subscribe. Hey, it's not every day that we get to talk through something like this. So thank you so much for being willing to take a chance with me, and we'll see you next time.